Hello and welcome to Sunday Morning Cornerman. This weekend on the SMC, we discuss all the relevant fights of UFC 237. Namajunas versus Andrade. I'll do this, of course, with my co-host, as always, from Sherdog, Fansided MMA, Cageside Press, and Loudmouth MMA Net Worth, Keith Shillan. Keith, how are you?
I'm good, man. Because of the special occasion that we're live on Twitter, I don't know if you can tell, I'm wearing a Sherdog hat, which is really cool. I think I got this hat maybe around 2003 or 2004. I wore it nonstop for about 3 or 4 years. I found it dug deep in my closet somewhere, and full circle, now I write for them, so it's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. All right, Keith, UFC 237 marked the promotion's 10th trip to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. This card certainly had a theme, with aging Brazilians fighting young fighters on the come. In fact, you can make a case that save the main event, the entire main card could be described that way. And unfortunately for the Brazilian faithful, the Brazilians did not fare well in those high-profile matches. What did you think going in? I ask you this all the time, but when you looked at this card, quote unquote, on paper, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the most stacked on paper card. I mean, just in general, having the strawweights, this is a division that has never headlined before, and that's counting the big long stretch with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She never headlined a pay-per-view. Rose Namajunas, the newer champ, got to headline a pay-per-view. So that right there tells you that they weren't planning on this being a huge card. They kind of do this when they go internationally anyways. But what I think they were doing is they were kind of hoping to get a bump from the aging stars, hoping that they would have some still things on Jose Aldo, Anderson Silva, kind of like that. But generally speaking, I think it was just kind of a filler card, where it's filling up a month until we get to ones that's coming up during the summer.
I agree, and you and I kind of most of the time steer away from like the pro wrestling talk and all that stuff. But I mean, I do feel sometimes like some of these certain fighters are meant to put other fighters over, if you will. And I thought that this was built a little bit for that. All right, let's start with the main event. Keith, the UFC's youngest current champion, the 26-year-old Rose Namajunas, hasn't been in the octagon in a minute. The 399-day layoff has been the longest of her career, but when she is in there, she's been on a roll, 3 fights in a row, but they have all been at the top of the food chain, defeating Michelle Waterson, followed by Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice. The last and only time Jessica Andrade fought for gold, it was against the aforementioned Jędrzejczyk. She went the distance, but left without the hardware. However, this night would be very different, as Andrade took the title from Namajunas, who actually dominated throughout, but found herself slammed and knocked out. Keith, post-fight, Namajunas seemed disinterested in a rematch, but does her performance pre-slam demand one?
Well, she seems disinterested in fighting at all, what she's been talking about. So we can get to that in a second. I don't like instant rematches. I think the only time you go to an instant rematch if there's some kind of controversy or if there isn't a glaring challenger. In this case, I actually think you can make a case for 3 different challengers. So to go right back to Rose Namajunas, I think that would be a poor choice. And I don't think she wants it, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think she might take some time off or maybe fight a lesser opponent than getting thrown back in there with a killer like Jessica Andrade. Answer your question.
I agree, but I think that there wasn't controversy here necessarily, but there certainly was a hell of a performance in the sense that now when you look at the stats, they're both at about half of their strikes completed. I thought it was way more one-sided than it actually was, with Rose having it's just the way the commentators talked, and I don't like to fall into that trap, but they were talking like they were watching. I mean, I think one of the quotes was that a master class.
Sure.
And I think Cormier said that. So I hear you in the sense that she doesn't want it, the fans don't want it, but it really was until that slam a one-sided fight, no?
I think yes and no. I definitely think it looked like a masterclass in the first round. Let's back up a second. Rose Namajunas did something that I don't think she gets enough credit for. You talk about improvements in her game. You go back to when she last lost prior to this against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and the improvements she has made over a 3-year stretch is to me unbelievable. How good in the striking department. Her jab was on point. I mean, she was jabbing Andrade. I mean, all that damage she was doing was mostly from a jab and a short lead hook, a little check hook when she was trying to keep Andrade back by keeping that check hook every time she stepped forward, check hook and jab. And in the first round, she looked fantastic. I mean, this fight in the first round, it reminded me of a lot of Jessica Andrade's last title fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Joanna was getting her to come forward, but Joanna was backing up. And when Andrade was trying to follow her, she would time where she was and pop, pop, pop. And I thought Rose was doing really well. But in the second round, I don't think people are giving Andrade enough credit. I believe Rose was winning the second round and doing well and probably would have won that round if it finished. But Andrade was starting to get her game plan in touch. She had Rose not backing up where she was backing up, setting, popping, and moving, but actually retreating. And she was closing distance more. She was getting her against the cage, landing punches, getting in on her hips, and pressing a pace that no one else in the division can do other than Jessica Andrade. So while the slam obviously changed everything, we don't know what would have happened if that didn't happen. It seemed like Andrade was starting to put herself back in this fight, and I don't think anybody's giving her credit for that. And I'm really surprised by that.
So what I took away from this fight was that what impressed me, honestly, was one, how effectively Namajunas' corner scouted Andrade in the sense that they had the counter for the slam, the Kimura. So they really had him.
They thought they did.
They thought they did. Well, here's the beauty of it. That's what I was going to say. Why they both scouted so well. On the one hand, they thought they had the counter for the slam, right? But on the other hand, props to Andrade for going back to it when it was so successfully dealt with the first time, right? I think that's a lot of times that's a credit to her. I mean, she could have just said, well, they got the Kimura and not everybody, does that. She went right back to it. And I thought we're going to get to how great the commentary team did later on. But I thought DC did a great job of saying, had Namajunas let go of the Kimura, she probably doesn't land on her head, right?
Yeah, there was somebody a couple weeks ago. I don't remember who it was. It was in a similar situation where they took a chance. Remember in Bellator? It was Mike Kimbrell and I'm forgetting his name, a local guy. He lives right down the street from me. I can't think of his name. The guy who John Duma. When John Duma beat Mike Kimbrell picked him up and slammed, and you kind of had that chance. He can hold on, which will sink in the armbar more if he doesn't get knocked out when he gets slammed. It's kind of like that chance you take, and it worked out for Duma. In this case, it did not work out for Rose. Obviously, to me, this is an instant candidate for KO of the year. That's probably secure by that 360 spin we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But this one's up there. I mean, and someone said this. I saw on Twitter. Someone, is this the greatest knockout in UFC women's division history? And I don't know anything that would top this.
Maybe Holman Rousey. That's about it.
Oh, Holman Rousey. That the high kick is what we see. We don't see a slam. I think because of the magnitude of the fight, the upset, that makes it better.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move it down the road.
But one thing, let's not forget that Rose was out for a year because of a neck injury.
Right.
Which her getting slammed on her head. I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
She had neck surgery. So besides losing the belt and saying things like, she almost feels relieved that she doesn't know if she really wants to do this anymore. She wants to do other things. That said, I just hope she's okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Rory McDonald, obviously not the religious part of it,
Sure.
But Rose Namajunas has always had a weird relationship with fighting.
She's a weird person. Let's just say, I don't want to say weird, but she's just a different person. I mean, right. I think she would say that she thinks differently than most people.
And we could break that down for 100 different Matt Berry of it all and all that stuff. But so we'll give her time off if that's what she wants. Let's move this division forward. Do you think the thing that's kind of staring us in the face now is that this opens up a rematch between Andrade and Jędrzejczyk with someone else now the champion? Jędrzejczyk is ranked number 2 at strawweight.
It gives her it makes it an option. So one of the winners of the night was definitely Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and she actually already won it on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it. She tweeted, or maybe it was Instagram. She messaged Andrade and said congratulations. But the picture she showed was from their fight, and Joanna high kicking her in the face.
Oh, wow. Nice.
That little subtle, kind of like when Conor McGregor did the Max Holloway, before. So. She definitely put herself back in, because I mean, when you lose 2 fights, you can't get a title shot until that champion loses. I mean, generally speaking, there's people who do it for. Generally speaking, you're not going to get it, and Joanna wasn't. So it puts you back in the mix. I think.
The fight you like? Do you like Suarez more? Do you like Ansarov more? What do you like?
I'm actually going to go even differently. Who deserves it most? I think is the winner of Tatiana Suarez versus Nina Ansarov. But from a marketing sense,
here it comes.
I'm not even going Joanna. I actually say dig deep and get your star, Michelle Waterson.
She's ranked number 7 for Christ.
And it's Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day.
Sit there as a purist and call for Michelle Waterson to get this title fight.
Well, let's say she's gorgeous. Not that I'm saying the other girls are. They're all actually pretty very attractive. Right. But she markets well. She has those TV shows. She has the mother angle. It's a fresh matchup. Even though JJ has beaten Andrade, we've seen it. So it's like a new, fresh face. And it's kind of, if I'm being honest, I don't think Michelle Waterson will win the title. I don't think she's good enough. But sometimes you got to give someone a chance. A lot of people didn't give Michael Bisping. I think he'd ever win, and he was in the right place, right time. And I think Michelle Waterson actually might be in the right place, right time. If she ever get a title shot, it's probably going to be now.
Here's why I like what you're saying. I don't like it because it's coming from a purist, and he's completely putting his purist aside and making this call. But I will say this. Joanna Jędrzejczyk may be better than the entire women's division except for Rose Namajunas, right? So let's say that's the case. I think putting her on hold and getting her angrier and making her want that title shot is just going to make for a better fight when she gets there, right? So give it to – I think all the other girls could more likely slip up on their way to the belt than Jędrzejczyk. So Waterson could lose, to somebody. Ansarov could obviously lose to Suarez. So if you give Waterson the fight, everybody's going to say it's because she's marketable, and so deal with it and move on. Yeah. But, you're going to get some pushback, but when has the UFC ever cared about that?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I like the call, honestly.
And Joanna obviously is marketable. I think she's very marketable. She kind of had her moment, and she will get it. She's definitely going to get a title shot again. But she's coming off, I think she's lost 3 out of the last 4. I mean, that is an argument right there.
Yeah.
And Tatiana Suarez and Nina Ansarov, they're kind of both the new kids on the block. They kind of earn your time a little bit. But as far as me being a purist, I am 100% a hypocrite. I am a purist what I want to be, and I am not. I wanted Brock Lesnar to get the title shot, but then I'm purist another one. So I know I am a hypocrite. So if you say, hey, Shill, you said this last week, this guy shouldn't get that, this guy. Listen, you don't have to call me hypocrite. I know I am.
I respect that. At least you own how much of a purist you are, and you own how much of a hypocrite you are.
That's right.
Keith, Jared Cannonier made his Octagon debut against Sean Jordan. Yes, that's Sean Jordan. And yes, it was at heavyweight. Yeah. Cannonier is kind of a reverse Anthony Johnson as he's heading down in weight. Cannonier only has 4 losses, but 3 of them came at the hands of some of the better 205-pound fighters in the world, Dominic Reyes, Jan Blachowicz, and Glover Teixeira. So now he's at 185, fighting the former best fighter at any weight, Anderson Silva. The Spider, who holds the record for most consecutive wins with 16, might have been moving towards the record of most consecutive losses, if not for a controversial nod against Derek Brunson. So this had all the makings of an interesting matchup, with us seeing how much Silva had left and how much Cannonier had, period. But that is not a fight that we got. Silva injured his knee, or more accurately, Cannonier injured it, blasting it with a leg kick and calling it a night. Keith, this won't be the end for Anderson Silva, most likely, because of circumstances, but should it be?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I think. What at this point? What is he fighting for? I mean, I know I get hit as saying that he gets like $600,000 for a fight, so obviously it's money, and it's easy for me to say, hey, don't take a $600,000 or whatever it is. It's somewhat close to that range. It's easy for me to say not take this fight, but are people still interested in seeing Anderson Silva? I mean, I'm not. I mean, the guy's like 42, I think, or I'm looking up right now. He's 44. Oh my God, he's 44, and who knows how long. This recovery, it might be something minor, could be a small meniscus tear, but if it's something serious where he's out for a while, do we really want to see a 45, 46-year-old Anderson Silva? And the crazy thing, they were talking about him. I know he's coming near the end of his contract. I think he might have 2 fights left, or maybe only 1 fight left after this. And they were talks about renegotiating for a 4-fight deal. I mean, do we want to see that? Do we want to see Anderson Silva fighting undercard fights against the number 15th ranked middleweight, and then he loses that, and then he's fighting, the 30th ranked and middle ESPN card. I mean, do we really want to see Anderson Silva turn into what BJ Penn is right now? I don't. Some people think he's the greatest fighter of all time. I don't. I think John Jones is, but I'm okay with people who put Anderson Silva in that discussion. I mean, do we really want to see, one of the biggest stars in the history of our sport fighting on Fight Pass prelims and stuff like that? I don't.
I don't either, really. I mean, I get the attraction. Everybody's waiting for the Anderson to sort of be what he was, and they keep sending guys out there who maybe he will give him the fight that will allow him to be what he was. But you're right. I mean, how many times do we have to have these nights where he's not what he was for us to be like, okay, enough's enough? In fairness to him, I will say he did sign a contract, I believe at age 37. It was a 10-fight contract. So realistically, he is – listen, and he can retire whenever he wants to. Right, but he did sign the contract and he's fulfilling it. So if on the one hand he's doing it strictly for money, fine. If he's doing it, I'm sure if you asked him, he would say, "I signed this contract and I'm trying to honor it." Right? I don't know if that's true, but that's my.
I don't think the UFC when they sign up for that long, I think that was. I don't think the number of fights really mattered to them. I think it meant to the end of his career. Kind of, hey, 37 was signed for 10 fights, and you do 5, cool. At that point, you'll be 42,
6, 8, right.
I think so. I don't think the UFC would mind Anderson Silva getting a contract. One of the worst things that happened it was how well Anderson Silva did against Israel Adesanya. I don't think he did as well as people remembered that fight. I think he had quick little pockets of action, but because of that, we saw little glimpses of greatness that we still think he has it, and some people are interested in seeing that. But I mean, obviously this fight didn't go long, but look at the first round. He did nothing. And that's kind of where he's got to be. He's got to conserve his energy. He's got to pick and choose his spots. And I kind of feel bad for Cannonier because it's kind of hard to analyze what Cannonier is because you had a guy that was just standing in front of him doing nothing, and then the fight ends on a freak injury or whatever. So it's really, do we have a new contender in the middleweight division? Or I don't think Cannonier's stock really rose at all because of this performance. I mean, it's not like he was beaten. Not like he 10-8 Anderson Silva in the first round. I mean, he put out a low output himself.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that his stock rose in that respect, like that we're any more impressed with him. But I will say that couldn't have went better for him, man. He went in there, didn't really look that – there wasn't enough time for him to look bad. He got the win on his resume, and then if you're him, you just kind of move forward, right? I mean, you don't want to see this thing ran back. I mean, obviously, you don't want Anderson Silva.
No. And one day he'll get to tell his grandchildren he'd be Anderson Silva.
Right.
I mean, there's somebody out there telling people that they beat Muhammad Ali. Some guy, I'm not boxing the story, but somebody is telling them, hey, when Muhammad Ali was 45 years old, I beat him. But you don't put that little detail in. I beat Muhammad Ali, and
right.
One day someone's going to say it about John Jones and Dennis Seaver saying he beat BJ Penn. This was going to happen. The one thing I think Jared Cannonier did really well is the way he handled the Brazilian crowd when they were booing him like crazy. I'll get it more into that later. Is one of our sections, but good for him, man. I thought the crowd was extremely disrespectful, and good for him to kind of not backing down. He didn't go full Colby Covington, but sure, you don't have to kiss the hometown's crowd. Good for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's definitely time for Anderson to move on. But yeah, the unfortunate part of now is that you say someday, Cannonier is going to be able to say to his grandkids he defeated Anderson Silva. The problem is there's a lot of guys now that can say that, and that's the unfortunate part about the end of Anderson Silva's career.
But at least he's, of all the people that did say that, he's the least marketable name, the less known name. I mean, the guys who still beat him are Chris Weidman, former champion, Michael Bisping,
Adesanya,
Daniel Cormier. I mean, that's what's happening now. He's getting into that Dennis Seaver down stage, what BJ Penn is. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see Anderson Silva losing to Ed Herman.
Or that thing where he's like the showcase fight on the prelims, and you're like what they tried to do BJ before BJ fell even further, where he's like the big fight, but on the prelims. Yeah, I don't want that for him either. All right, let's move on. Keith, Shane Young, Jeremy Kennedy, Darren Elkins, and Chad Mendez is the list of fighters who have been defeated by Alexander Volkanovski that has fans and media alike clamoring for the Australian to get big fights and title shots. Alexander the Great got the former in the form of former pound-for-pound number one Jose Aldo, who is certainly on the way back down the hill of his career, not up it. Keith Volkanovski passed the test, but in all honesty, it didn't look like much of a test. And while this may have set him up for bigger things, should it?
I do. I think so. I think I thought it was a good performance. It's funny. A lot of people I've noticed haven't been that impressed. He fought, to me, I thought Volkanovski fought the perfect fight. Did he commit enough to try to knock out Jose Aldo? No, he played it safe, but it was working. Everything he was doing was working. He was getting Anderson Silva to fight off his back foot. He was getting Anderson Silva to be defensive. He was leading the charge the whole time, where he's like, okay, I'll get my moments, I'll get out. Even the parts where he would tack, and then when he got into that pocket range, which has always been Anderson Silva's world, that close-in boxing, instead of throwing it down with him, he would clinch with him, or he would grab a leg. Even when he couldn't get Anderson Silva down, to me, it didn't even seem like he needed that takedown. It was more he felt safe there, getting the safe place. He can kind of wear on Anderson Silva in that range. And to me, I thought it was a masterpiece in sticking to a game plan. It's not going to be exciting, but it's going to work. And I think, I think he deserves a title fight. I think he should fight Max Holloway next.
Right, and in fairness to Keith, he's so broken up over Anderson Silva's career, he keeps calling Jose Aldo Anderson Silva, which is fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my God. I went to bed at 1:30 in the morning.
It's okay. No, I don't think that his performance was bad at all. I think that I didn't see as much out of Jose Aldo as I wanted to. And I think that's what I mean by do you think Jose Aldo was a proper test for Volkanovski? Not that he didn't do the perfect fight. He did the perfect fight. He got the win. He controlled the fight. But do you think that Aldo showed up?
No, I don't. I think it was a terrible performance from him. I think we may have gotten a little bit more excited over his last two wins than we should have. I think that might have been a little what's the word I'm looking at? Like a little deceiving, a little magic, like deflecting. Like that's not really him knocking out Moicano and knocking out Chet. I mean, when he lost to Max Holloway second time, we kind of was writing him off. He's done. And then all of a sudden he gets the two wins over Moicano and Jeremy Stevens, and it's like, oh my God, the featherweight king is back. Jose Aldo's back. And I do this every week. He's somewhere in between. And I actually think he's more towards the Max Holloway, where he's kind of done. It felt like he couldn't get started in this fight. Like Volkanovski had his game plan. It was working, and he had no response. And some of that to me is relying too much on the knockout instead of trying to outpoint, letting the knockout come to him. It seemed like everything he threw was with power, trying to get the knockout. And we know, as being fans for a long time, that doesn't happen when you look for the knockout. It has to. It'll present itself. And another big thing, I'll get to this later on, is he has abandoned the leg kicks, and that's Jose Aldo's. That's his bread and butter. That's his. That's what he's created the man on. Is like it'd be like, Habib not going for takedowns. I mean, that's not him, and not kicking, which he hasn't done in a while, has really changed Jose Aldo.
I agree. And post fight, for his part, Volkanovski is looking for Max Holloway. He thinks the title shot's his. What do you think about that? I do. I mean, it's the big loser. Actually, I'm going to say that for later. But yeah, I think he is. I mean, they showed that winning streak. He's on this huge winning streak. He's undefeated in the UFC. He has one loss in his career, and it was really early. I mean, you're talking about 2013, and it looked like it was probably a fluke loss. I mean, he beat Darren Elkins, who was on a nice win. Oh, before that, Jeremy Kennedy, I think he only has one career loss. He's fighting the PFL. He's a nice prospect. Darren Elkins, who was on a good win streak at that point. Chad Mendez, a former title challenger, and now Jose Aldo, the greatest featherweight of all time. So, yeah, I mean, he's the guy. How can you deny him? Yeah, and the only guys ahead of him are Edgar, Ortega, and Aldo. Obviously, Holloway's beaten Aldo, and Ortega hasn't fought Edgar, I don't believe. No. So then I definitely think that you go with Volkanovski over Edgar here. I mean, you maybe go with Edgar only because of the clock's ticking on him.
Yeah.
If you want to get that fight out of the way. If you think that maybe it would put a little extra money in Holloway's pocket, which I don't even know if it's relevant anymore. But yeah, those are the two choices.
But from a ranking sense, from the UFC rankings, I think when those come out on Wednesday, Volkanovski might be ahead of all of them. I think he might come out number one on that list.
Well, yeah, that would certainly give him the shot. All right, Keith, if the theme of the night was older Brazilians putting over younger studs, then Laureano Staropoli versus Thiago Alves certainly fit that bill. Although in this one, I saw it a little different than the judges. Staropoli came out looking gangbusters, but I feel like Alves looked sharp in the second, pretty good in the third. I certainly see the case for Staropoli, but how'd you see it?
I gave it to him, but it was one of those ones. I thought it was close. I thought the judges got it right. But I want to say this: I was very distracted. I was in a bar. I was talking with friends, and I was also watching Bellator at the same time. So I was all over the place. So I like to look at MMA decisions to see how the media scored. I was so distracted, I didn't even submit my own score in for this one fight. But it's a clean sweep for Staropoli. So I'm glad the Brazilian judges are up. But from what I saw, and I wasn't paying attention, it seemed like it was close.
Yeah, me too. And there's something I'm going to get to that was mentioned in this fight a little bit later in terms of the early rounds in these 3-round fights, how fighters are handling these early rounds. So, yeah, I'll get to that when the time comes.
But stop on Thiago Alves for a second. If we go through his record, he is on a huge losing streak. His last win was a very controversial win over Max Griffin that I think everybody I know thought Max Griffin won that fight. So if he didn't get that fight, he would have lost 4 fights in a row. Digging even deeper, it would be 6 out of 7 if he didn't get that Max Griffin decision, with his only win being over Patrick Cote in Cote's retirement fight. So Thiago Alves has had. I mean, he's an agent. He's 35, but he looks like a much older 30. Like on that, I don't know. He looks like a 45 welterweight.
Yeah.
And
I think Alves fits in that category. Kind of, we talk about Jim Miller. Not quite Jim Miller, but I think there's certain guys that Dana White has a place in his heart for.
Sure.
Place for season 1 tough guys. I honestly think he has a place in his heart for everybody that was on UFC 100. Thiago Alves fought George St. Pierre at UFC 100. So
maybe yeah.
Certain things where I think he lets guys stick around for different reasons. I think this is why Alves sticks around. I don't think he's the Thiago Alves that fought George St. Pierre, but I do think he could be picking up wins with a slight modification, which again I'll talk about.
He could be competitive. You can see that he could still be competitive. I'm sure there's welterweights in the division that he could still pick up wins up. But you're a former title challenger. You're a guy who knocked out Matt Hughes. You beat Josh Koscheck. I mean, you beat some really solid guys in their prime. Obviously he fought for the title, but he is one of the head coaches at American Top. I think he's one of the main Muay Thai coach there. Why not just go that route? I mean, look at what Mike Brown did. Mike Brown, he took maybe 1 or 2 fights too long, and then he retired, and he's had a really successful time being a head coach of probably the best team in MMA. You're there. I mean, people rave about how good a coach is. You see him cornering more and more. Man, maybe it's time to put your own career to the side and just do that, man. Go. I mean, look, you have a guy in your team who did it, and Mike Brown is probably the premier coach in MMA. Maybe Thiago Alves could be too.
Yeah, I agree, and I would have to talk to some coaches, maybe here in the Valley about this specifically. But I wonder how much he's diminishing his brand. Because on the one hand, you could say to yourself, it probably makes more in the cage than out of the cage. Okay, that's a given. But at what point if you keep getting these losses, does your team not look at you and go, maybe we should bring another guy in because people don't want to work with a guy who keeps losing? So I would be interested to see how those dynamics work.
Sure. I feel like his mind is there. I just think his body. I mean, this is a guy that he kind of won by being an explosive athlete. I mean, remember when he knocked out Matt Hughes with the flying knee? He was a freak athlete, and the athleticism isn't there anymore, and that's a major problem. I mean, to me, watching this fight, and like I said, I was a little distracted. If this was in their prime, it seemed like Thiago Alves would have just destroyed his feet and eventually knocked him out.
Yeah, you could see that. You could see where you would – there's certain things you're expecting from Alves, especially when the cool thing about a guy like Alves is that he doesn't fight so often that when you look at him, you remember the old guy. So when you see him not doing things, you're like, man, whatever happened to Thiago? Like you can really tell. Where some guys fight so often, like Anderson Silva, that his diminishment is in the front of your mind. If that makes sense. Alves' diminishment isn't in the front of your mind because he doesn't fight often enough, in my opinion. All right, let's move on. Keith, number 11 ranked Irene Aldana came out and fought like exactly what she was, the bigger, more crisp fighter. Once Bethe Correia realized she was going to have to eat some of what Aldana was cooking to serve some of her own, she was happy to do it. But much like we saw a couple of weeks ago, an ill-advised takedown and some bad jiu-jitsu ended Correia's night, tapping to a belly-down armbar. Keith, I've asked you this one before, but is this one of those fights where we look at it and we say, okay, is Aldana for real or is Bethe Correia washed?
Well, you ask me this all the time, and I think I'm going to give the answer that I give you almost every week. A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Irene Aldana, she had moments, but you know what? I thought Bethe Correia had moments. I thought the stand-up battle was pretty close. I think she started making some adjustments and was doing well. I think you could make an argument that this was fight of the night. I probably would have went with the main event because of the slam and everything. But from a competitive nature, this is probably the most competitive fight of the night. And like you said, Bethe Correia made a terrible mistake shooting for that takedown. It was kind of like that Kyle Nelson fight.
There it was. That was the one I was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah, with Kyle Nelson, he shot an ugly takedown. I mean, anybody who listens to me knows that I love my wrestlers. It's just you got to set it up, and she didn't set it up, and she paid the price for it.
What do you think's next for Aldana? According to one John Morgan, who again, guys, we talked about this call-out thing John Morgan's doing. I like it. He says Aldana wants, what is it, Raquel Pennington? That's what she called out. What do you think about that fight?
Yeah, no, I actually like that. I mean, we talk about this. I like fights that make sense, and that makes sense. I mean, Raquel Pennington lost 2 in a row, but she lost 2 in a row. She's a former title challenger. Not too long ago, she was fighting for the title. Her last 2 losses had been to Amanda Nunes and Jermaine Duran. You talk about the current champion and the former featherweight champion. So, yeah, I'm cool with that. Another person. So if you want to use Aldana as the one kind of coming up with Pennington going down, that's one strength. Or maybe you want to use her as a test for someone. I don't know if I like Aldana. I don't know if she's a true title challenger. I don't think that's what I think her ceiling is not there. Okay. So maybe you use a girl on a 3-fight winning streak as the test for somebody else, a step up and test. How about a Macy Chiasson fight?
That'd be interesting.
Like, I wouldn't mind you seeing that, having her be the toughest test for the Ultimate Fighter winner.
Yeah, and I don't think Aldana has such a big name that, I mean, she's not someone that you're looking to market. She's not Macy Barber or anybody like that. So I think that is a good test, like you said, for Chiasson. And then you figure out, okay, who's gonna move forward here and who's gonna have to go back to the drawing board a little bit. I like that fight. Yeah,
me tut.
All right, let's go.
I'm okay with the Raquel Pennington fight too.
All right. Let's go to the prelims. I'm going to go about order here because I want to start BJ so we can talk about him. Keith, BJ Penn has a very tumultuous life right now, and some athletes have historically used their arena as a place to find peace, but there was no peace for BJ Penn on this night as the first round was kind of back and forth, and then his gas tank emptied, and so did his effectiveness. I want to be fair to BJ here. He did look like he was fighting what we'll call an old man's fight, successfully early, in the sense that he was fairly economical in his movement, controlling the center of the octagon, and cutting Guida off well. BJ's career at present, especially in terms of who he is matched up with, is troubling. Guys whose technique is too sharp destroy him, and guys with a lack of technique outwork him until he becomes so tired he abandons his technique.
Yeah, that's one.
That's usually the sign of a guy getting ready to hang him up, but I feel like that's not what BJ will do. What did you see in the fight, and what's next?
I think you wrapped up it perfectly. Like, I wouldn't have said it better myself. If you're more athletic than him, you're going to knock him out. And if you're not, you can just outwork him. One thing that people do not talk about, when a guy gets older, they always talk about the chin failing. They talk about the body failing. They don't talk about the cardio failing. Like, it's almost like something we don't think ages with a fighter. I'm not by any means a doctor or a dietitian or something like that, but there's got to be things that your body doesn't make anymore as you get older that you did when you were younger to improve your cardio. BJ looks like a fighter that has no cardio anymore. I mean, he was competitive in that first round. I gave it to Guida, but a lot of people gave it to Penn the first round. I thought it could have went either way. But every minute that went on, it became more and more apparent that was Clay Guida's fight. And BJ, I mean, after the first round, he had nothing. God, please just retire. I mean, BJ Penn is one of the greatest fighters of all time. If you became an MMA fan when Conor McGregor, the Conor McGregor era or the Ronda Rousey era, if those people brought you an MMA and you saw BJ Penn, you'd be like, who? Why are they giving this Hawaiian guy with a 16-14 record who looks like a fat Cabbage Patch Kid? Why are you giving this guy a fight? I mean, this is one of the great top 15 probably fighters of all time, and I don't want to see him fight. And my thing is anybody want to see him fight? When he left and came back against Yair Rodriguez, there was a little bit of buzz. Oh, he's going down in weight. He's going to a great Jackson team. He never was with a great team, and there was this like little bit of a hope. Oh, maybe there was something there. But once we saw it wasn't there, I don't know anybody who wants to see BJ Penn fight anymore. Yeah. So why are we even doing this? And to me, I thought Clay Guida could have stopped BJ Penn. I feel like there was like too much respect from Clay Guida because it was BJ Penn. But I thought he let off on the gas. But if he stepped down on the gas pedal, I think it would have took BJ Penn out.
There's a lot of things that make guys walk away from the sport. And if the way that, like you said, if Guida did take his foot off the gas a little bit, I mean, after the fight, it was like Guida seemed like he was more celebrating the moment than being like he wanted to hug BJ, kept following around the cage and have that moment with him that BJ didn't seem like he wanted to be a part of. They've tried everything with him, right? So they tried a young guy that maybe wasn't experienced enough forget when they put him in there with, Diaz and McDonald and Edgar. He was never going to win those fights. No. They put him in there with a young guy in Yair Rodriguez. That didn't work. They put him in there with a smaller guy in Dennis Seaver. That didn't work. They put him in there with a grappling-only guy in Ryan Hall. That didn't work. Now they put him in there with a guy who's pretty much what he is, a 500 fighter, in Clay Guida. Now, the only thing left, really, is a guy with technique, not as great. Like, Guida doesn't have great technique, but he's got a huge gas tank. So you knew that Guida was going to Penn. So the hope of the UFC was if BJ could catch this guy early, he might get a win because Guida leaves himself open. But it will not be till if it goes the distance, there's no way he's going to get a win. Yeah. Guida's just going to wear him out. So I don't know, man. It's like when you're trying to figure out all these his opponents are so different, Keith, that it's clear they're searching for the guy to give him that one last great fight, and they can't find it.
The only thing I could think you could do with BJ, there's only one thing, is if you finally decide to do that Hawaii card, which I still can't believe they haven't done. You have Max Holloway headline it, you throw Yancy Medeiros, you throw all the Hawaiians on. You put BJ Penn in a fight, maybe kicking off the pay-per-view. You announce this is his retirement fight. You say, we are not re-signing you. This is it. You do the big sad thing. And you give him a guy who's not even UFC level. Give him what Bellator just did with Jack Swagger, Jake Hager. Bring in the lightweight version of TJ Jones. Give him – you may even pick a Hawaiian guy so there's like that local feel. You're a promoter. You can make this guy seem like he's a killer and then just have him take him out.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Put PJ Penn against CM Punk. He's still
you son of a bitch. You stole it. I was going to say there's no way that CM Punk can make 55 or 70. But
BJ will go up.
Let BJ fight 85.
Or fight the guy who beat CM Punk. What's his name? Not Mickey Gall, the other guy.
Mike Jackson.
Mike Jackson, yeah. Put him. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to see BJ fight. No, I know if anybody's listening to this, they're probably saying, BJ's taking the fight because all the things are going on. He needs the money and cocaine and all this. Like I said, I don't know his personal life that enough to say that's why he's taking fights. But I will talk about you if you listen to this show at all. I'm not scared to talk about people's personal life. I am saving that for a later portion where I will talk about BJ Penn's personal life. So don't call me a wimp. I will definitely talk about it.
All right, there you have it. Yeah, I think that you know what? I'm sure that based on everything I know about you and I'm sure your thoughts are probably similar to mine. So we'll save the BJ stuff for later. All right, let's get on with the rest of the preliminary card. Ryan Spann defeated Antonio Rogero Nogueira by KO via strikes in round number 1. So Spann is from Fortis. Have you heard of that camp?
I love Fortis. You set me up. I know you got.
I don't know if you heard of him.
I know. What's funny because all the Fortis MMA guys, Spann's probably the guy I'm least excited about. But yeah, I love Fortis MMA.
He looked good. All right, Thiago Moises defeated Kurt Holobaugh by unanimous decision. Anything here?
Kurt Holobaugh just can't win the UFC. I mean, he's a killer in the regional scene. He can't win in the UFC. And I do want to say something about Spann and Nogueira. what happened. It's sad. In their prime, I think Nogueira would whip the floor with Span. But the difference between this fight was I see a guy who's extremely athletic with not very technical versus the guy that all he has is technique left and no athleticism. And in this case, athleticism trumped technique.
You know what, though? I do like the finish. In fairness to Span, I do like the finish, the double right, and then the uppercut. I mean, again, I don't know how great the punch was because I don't know how much Nogueira has left on that chin, but it was a good looking combination.
How about this for a BJ Penn fight? Take BJ, Nogueira, Thiago Alves, and who am I forgetting? Anderson Silva. Put them in like the first ever Royal Rumble style match, and the winner gets one more fight in the UFC. Whoever's left gets one more fight. Now
you're outside the box. BJ's fought a heavyweight before. He's fine with that. He fought Machida at heavyweight.
Yeah, out of all the people that list, BJ would probably be the least with the problem to do it.
All right, up next, Raquel Alves. Good.
Hold on, we're talking about who can he fight. This is the guy that 3 or 4 days ago was talking about winning the featherweight, winning the lightweight title again, beating Habib, and like meaning it. This is the guy who thought he could win the title again. I mean, maybe BJ has some CT. I know I keep hopping on that point, but BJ, please retire.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the interesting thing that I want to take a look at, and it would take a real commitment by some people to open themselves up. I would love to see a documentary or do a documentary or see like a really well done podcast about the aging superstar. And what is it that the aging superstar, what is he looking at in that mirror that makes him think that, he's had a lot of great nights and I get that, but he's had some really bad ones. And the one stat I was going to say, we'll jump back on BJ for a second, is he's 16, 14-2, right? That's not 500 technically, but that means that he's not won as many fights as he's won. So yeah, that's not technically 500. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Like, no, it's close.
He's even up. And who wants to? If he gets another loss or whatever, now who wants to have not won more fights? Who wants to, in their career having not won more fights than they won?
Yeah, the one thing to talk about these aging stars, and I'm not digging into some study. This is just winging it. From what I see is if a guy doesn't go into either commentating where they get a full-time gig with like Michael Bisping or Bas Rutten or Randy Couture, or they become a coach like a Mike Brown or some kind of thing like that, where the Rashad Evans is with the Black Zillions or the Hard Knocks 3, where they're really in it, it seems like their life really starts falling. You see with Chuck Liddell, Mark Coleman, Babalou's got CTE, just came out this week saying it's CTE. So it's a rough sport, and we're kind of getting to the point where we're seeing this now with these guys.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. That we could go to rant for hours about it, insurance and fighter pay, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. That is slippery slope. But
well, again, I don't want to step on your toes with the BJ stuff, but you're opening up a lot of things in my brain. And here's the thing that scares me about BJ, honestly, is that number one, he's in an area where a lot of his behavior can go unchecked because he's so huge there. And he's sort of isolated, right? So the things that he does goes largely unchecked for a number of reasons. One, for that. 2, he's surrounded by a lot of yes men. But 3, he's always been the focus. So the larger part of never being a team is that he's never really had to get anybody else ready.
Yeah, that's true.
He doesn't have that next sort of like evolution of like, he doesn't know what it's like to make someone else's camp the focus of his life. So really all he has left, I thought when they opened up some UFC gyms in Hawaii, that was going to be his thing. He was going to run a UFC gym, and even if he wasn't there all the time, he was just collecting a check, he would kind of like show up when the cameras were there, and it would at least give him a new identity. And it didn't seem like that did it either. So I know we keep jumping on BJ, but obviously
my thing is
Kurt Holobaugh.
Yeah, you know what would be cool if the UFC did what Bellator does a lot, but they have these they kind of did it and they got away from it, but Bellator does a good job with it, with these ambassadors where they go to the shows and they stay outside and you get to meet, you go to a Bellator show, or you could meet Hoist Gracie or whoever they decide to do, Vanderlei Silva. They could do that at BJ Penn. Or if he doesn't want to do that, you're BJ Penn, you're a former, like I said, you're top 15-ish, top 20-ish fighter of all time, former world champ. You're a world champion in BJJ. You could do seminars. You'd make a lot of money. If BJ Penn came to a local jiu-jitsu school, how much could he charge for a 2-hour seminar?
A ton.
75
I
bucks.
see guys locally come in, and it's like they do this thing at Fight Ready where it's like Legends of Jiu-Jitsu. I want to say it's for those seminars, and it goes like back and forth between who I know, and I'm pretty in the know. And if BJ came, $500 per person to go to that seminar, easy.
Maybe, yeah,
$500.
I mean, that's what the top wrestlers do, like Cael Sanderson and guys like this.
And if you toured, right? So if you toured like a comedian tours. So let's say you went to, in a year, you did 100 places, right? So you have 265 days off, 100 days, quote unquote, on. That's a good amount of money, $500 a pop. And then you come back around each year. I'm sure everybody pay $500 to train with them once a year.
But what if you did it like? Well, what if you do like the comedians who travel together in packs where it comes in and it's the new Gare brothers and BJ?
Yeah.
Or something, who knows? I mean, there's opportunities for these guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to a performance of the night, which we'll get to all the performances of the night, so we wrap things up a little bit later. But Warlley Alves defeated Sergio Moraes by KO via strikes. This was rough.
This is tough to watch.
This was kind of, Moraes showing you how tough he was, and Warlley Alves showing you how diversified a striker he was. We'll talk about the performance bonuses later and my problem with them. But what do you think about this fight?
I think I saw a younger, more athletic, with a lot more left in his game in Warlley Alves than Sergio Moraes. Sergio Moraes showed signs in his fight against Anthony Rocco Martin that he was aging, and there's no doubt of it now. He looks like he's done, and Warlley Alves looked really good. He was just so much quicker. He was better everywhere, and this gets the point. He took some unnecessary damage. I mean, he was you could felt that whole time, like, all right, he's going to get knocked out soon. And he got hit with everything. The guy's 36 compared to 28 of Alves. I kind of wish the corner threw in the towel, but that still goes back to the old thing we talk about when you have show and win money, a corner doesn't want to throw in the towel because they're guaranteeing that's 50% of your purse that you're automatically throwing out. And
right.
Just don't want to do that. If the guy's, maybe, I don't know how much Sergio Moraes, but say 25,000, 25. He probably makes a little bit more than that, but say 40,000, 40,000. You're guaranteeing he doesn't get the chance of 40,000 if you throw in the towel, and a lot of guys don't want to take that. But I felt like this. I mean, he took some punishment. You could just see that knockout was coming.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that it didn't come sooner because he got hit with some good shots.
Sometimes I think these referees need to protect guys from themselves, and the corners do as well. And
I agree.
I'm not interested in figuring out how tough Sergio Moraes is. I'm interested in a good fight, and once he started really getting blasted, it was like, okay. And finally, I think that Alves just hit him with a punch that Moraes really just felt comfortable not getting up to. All right, that was a good one. I'll stay down. That's enough. He maybe could have gotten up, but he was like, that's a good one to go out on. And the other ones just weren't good enough to go out on. All right, let's go through the rest of the prelim card. Luana Carolina defeated Priscilla Cachoeira by unanimous decision, 30-26, 30-26, 29-27. Anything?
Oh, this was really fun. This was just a fighter. Even she knew what her best option was. She kind of he played this Eliza Theodoro thing for the first round. She kind of made a chase and then pick apart. When she got too close, she would clinch, and she beat her up in that clinch. And Cachoeira, I mean, she's a girl. She's 0-3 in the UFC, but man, between this fight and the Shevchenko fight, man, the girl could take a beating. I mean, she's got a huge, huge heart. But yeah, I thought it was a good performance from Carolina. Carolina, she's very raw, but I think I saw some potential there too. She can clean it up a little bit. She looks pretty good. She looks like a nice addition to the UFC.
And if you're scoring at home, this is the part of the show where I'll be taking out the white apron and butchering all these names. So before you jump on Twitter and bust my balls, just understand I know I'm about to butcher some of these, but I'm going to give it the old college try. And here's what I'm going to do that a lot of guys won't do. I'm going to pronounce them like I'm doing it right, whether I'm doing it right or not.
Sure.
I'll pronounce these with a confidence that you don't see in many guys that butcher shit. All right, up next, Raoni Barcelos defeated Carlos Huachin by TKO via strikes. What you see in this one?
I actually was impressed by Huachin, even though he lost. He did well in the first round. The first round was fun. I mean, I actually scored the first round for him. Both guys had really good moments. Barcelos is a guy that I've been pumping for a while. I think he's a top 15 level fighter. I think he could be rankings. I think he could maybe even sneak in the top 10 I mean, you're talking about BJ Black Belt, really good striker. He headed this fight as a negative 1,100 favorite, which is insane to get that. And it didn't look good if you were, if you bet on the big favorite. But then he had his moment. He dropped him. He kind of took over in the second round. You could see that experience kicking in for him. But yeah, out of this is what an 1,100 favorite should do. He should take out a guy like Hochinia. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to take anything from this, but overall, I thought the Peruvian did well enough to kind of, intrigue me a little bit in his next time he gets in the UFC.
All right, and then finishing out, we have Vivian Araujo defeating number 15 Toledo Bernardo by KO via punch in round number 3. How about this one?
Araujo did not get a performance bonus. I think that's a shame. This is a girl who took the fight on 3 days' notice. Not only did she take on 3 days notice, she moved up 2 weight classes in her UFC debut, taking on 3 days notice, moving up 2 weight classes, and getting a knockout in the women's division. We don't see often of a one-punch knockout. She definitely, I thought she should have got a performance bonus, and that's a shame that she didn't. But really good, really fast for the weight class. She was definitely undersized, but it almost was an advantage for her. She just beat Bernardo to the punch. And with having a full camp, I'd be even more intrigued because she slowed down a little bit in the second, and I think that was just from not having a full camp. But overall, really good performance.
All right, let's move on to the fun stuff. Let's start with trending up, trending down. For me, trending up, I have Ryan Spann, big-time KO for the Fortis MMA standout. Keith, are you familiar with Fortis MMA? I understand it's a good gym.
Yeah, I like Fortis MMA. I've heard of him one or two times. I think I heard of him.
Okay, well, he looked good coming out of there. All right, trending down, Sergio Moraes' left thigh. Kid got battered, man. He was tough, but the next couple of days will not be the best for your mans. What do you got trending up and down? I
got 2. One that's probably not a public choice, but Alex Volkanovski. I think he's got himself a title fight. He beat a legend, Jose Aldo. How can he not be trending up? And I'm going to give Irene Aldana. She's on a 3-fight winning streak in a weaker, very shallow division. That's always a good sign. Trending down, I like that you took a different route, and I'm going a different route too. Trending down is Frankie Edgar, and I'll tell you why.
I like it.
If Jose Aldo won, Frankie Edgar would have had the title fight against Max Holloway. There would have been no other options. Now that Volkanovski wins, I believe he's been leapfrogged by Volkanovski. So the stock of Frankie Edgar, the answer has fallen.
All right, let's move on to Not For Nothing. Not For Nothing, but are we done with Betch Correia? I mean, I know she's game. I get it. She just seems like someone we run out there because she fought Ronda.
We forgot to mention she missed weight by 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And you know what that is? Not to interrupt you here, but who was it? The guy, the fight that got canceled last minute. I can't think off the top of my head. You know what I'm talking about? The main card kicker offer. It was Francisco Trinaldo and Carlos Diego Ferreira. Diego Ferreira was going to miss weight. He kept cutting. He got too dehydrated. They pulled him from it. What Betch Correia decided is, I'm not going to miss weight. Why am I going to keep cutting and get the fight canceled? I'll be too heavy, so they'll take 30% instead of 20%, but I'll still get paid. To me, that's terrible. Yeah, I'm with you. Let's get rid of Betch Correia.
Up next, Not For Nothing, but enough with the taking the first round to get your reads. Okay, I know Dominic Cruz says this, but dude, you are losing the first round. Quote unquote, getting your reads. Yeah. And if you lose the second, the game plan is out the window in the third anyway. So right. Don't take the first off to figure out what your opponent's doing and all the fates. I get it. Take the first half of the first round, not the whole first round. Dominic Cruz talked about, I think, Alves was doing it. Maybe Aldo was doing it. It's like, dude,
Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva was doing it.
Yeah, let's get going. In a 5-round fight, okay. In a 3-round fight, you've already lost a third of the fight trying to figure the guy out. All right, up next, Not For Nothing, but enough with the double bonuses. I get it. Andrade won, and Namajunas looked good. Then give them fight of the night and pay some of these prelim kids off. I'm listening in the pre-fight to your man Ryan Spann from Fortis MMA. Your man Ryan Spann said, if I get a performance bonus, I'm moving my family to Dallas to train at Fortis MMA full-time. Keith, he earned a performance bonus. He knocked out Rogerio Nogueira. And you gave it to, and we'll get to
how about Raja?
Ryan Spann.
Yeah. How about Raja? She was buying tickets to the show 3 days ago, and now she's fighting on the card, moving up 2 weight classes. How could she not get a bonus?
Come on. Hey,
I'm with you, man.
I got something for you.
They don't
something for you and finish strong.
They don't dig deep enough and on the card, and it's a shame because I'm with you. These bonuses were set up to have these fighters who thinking they're going to make 30,000, all of a sudden they make 80,000. That's career changing. It's not career changing for Rose Namajunas. It's
right.
Life changing. Yeah, it's not life changing to these guys. It's life changing. I'm with you, man. I'm 100% with you, and it seems like everybody in the media is with it. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
That's it for me. I got some more about this, though, and finish strong. Go ahead.
Okay, I got a couple of ones. Not for nothing, Arisha, you moved up 2 weight classes. Why are you talking about moving back down? You look fantastic. Your speed advantage is great. Stay until you lose. Stay in the higher weight class. Or at least move down 1. Don't have to go back down. Don't drain your body. Not for nothing.
Whoa. Not before we go any further, not to cut you off, but
sure.
Let's get some comprehensive data about people moving up. It seems like everybody that moves up does well, Keith.
Generally speaking, I know. So don't move back down. You moved up. You look fantastic. Stay there. And the power. And she got a big 1-punch power knockout. So the power went with you. Not for nothing. Well, we've kind of killed this point again. But Anderson Silva, Lil Nogueira, Thiago Alves, BJ Penn, please, all 4 retire. Not for nothing. Can we stop being hypocrites and talk about the criminal history of Greg Hardy and anybody we want, Malik Nicholson, all these guys that we want to be bad guys, but then ignore a guy like BJ Penn. BJ Penn has had a criminal history his entire career, all the way back in like UFC 30s when he attacked a police officer. People forget about that. He was accused of sexual assault. I know there wasn't a lot to do there. Now he's got domestic issues. He's had a lot of issues. So if we're going to bring up things with Greg Hardy, why don't we do the same with BJ Penn? Not for nothing. Jose Aldo, go back to your leg kicks. If you're going to revise your career, you got to do leg kicks. Or you know what? I really like to see Jose Aldo moving up to lightweight. Not for nothing, and this is changing a way different direction. Fighter pay. Taiwan Claxton, who fought in Bellator on the same night, he's going for an interview with Google where he will leave training. Maybe we should pay fighters more, but that a corporate job is not more appealing than Taiwan Claxton. But in that case, Taiwan, good luck to you tomorrow in your interview. And not for nothing, I did this as a closing strong a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to do it again. Bellator, what the F? Like, stop doing it on Saturdays. You had a great card, and you're splitting your audience, and we all didn't get to watch the Bellator card because we were watching the UFC, or we had split with 2 TVs. And at one point, we almost had the 2 fights I was most excited about, Jose Alves, Alex Volkanovski going head-to-head with Pitbull and Chandler. Luckily, the knockout ended quick. But stop doing that, Bellator. Just keep to Fridays. That's all I got.
All right, let's go to the notebook. Listen, I'm going to start from the notebook. No one is harder on John Anik than I am. The guy had a good night. He did. He had, and we're going to talk about the commentary team here in a second, Keith. I think they're starting to come into their own, these 3. I think Rogan, Cormier, and Anik already got their rhythm. I think Cormier, Cruz, and Anik are getting theirs now. Everybody kind of knows their role. But a couple of props for John Anik. Number one, when he announced, I want to say it was BJ Penn. But hang on because I want to get this right. Yeah. When he announced the tail of the tape for BJ Penn, he said BJ Penn is a man. He's 40. That was a subtle Mike Gundy reference that I don't think everybody got. I was like, he's a man. It took me a second. I was like, all right, Anik.
It's awesome.
That was dad joke number 1. Here's dad joke number 2. When he said that Sergio Moraes is going to be pronounced more ice because he's going to need more ice for his thigh. Another dad joke. I was
terrible.
Like, so on a little
terrible. Yeah, that one was terrible. Okay.
Another thing I liked from the commentary team, this was kind of interesting. Cruz asked Cormier a question about something one of the fighters was doing that Cormier does really well, and Cruz said, well, why do you like to do this so much, DC? I can't remember what it was. I think it was fighting against the cage or something like that. And Cormier gave like a really short answer, and he said, I can't give it all away because he's fighting Stipe soon. And then Cruz was like, hey, this is your job, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, I respected Cormier holding it back, and I respected Cruz pushing it.
Funny.
I said on Early Stoppage, the new podcast that we launched with Mike Strauss, we set the over-under on how many times Cruz was going to be condescending to Anik at 10, and I took the under. I thought Cruz was polite, man. I think that Cormier is like, when Dad's home, it's like, okay, Dad's home, we can't, kind of pull the shit that because I really think Cormier and Anik have a really good relationship. I think Cruz and Anik have an okay relationship, and I don't think Cruz pulls his bullshit when Cormier's around. But what did you think about the commentary crew? One more thing. I like it when what fight was it in? I think it was in the BJ fight, maybe. I like it when Buffer goes with Portuguese. One of the fights, he was like, "Oh, senors and senorita." Yeah. I was like, "All right, Buffer, you did your homework. You came out with a little Portuguese. I like that as well." So, what do you think of the commentary team? Where do you stand with them now?
I like I kind of like all the mix and match. I definitely like Cormier. I mean, we talked about this over and over again. I love Daniel Cormier in the booth. He's Keith. I think Dominic Cruz, you kind of either gonna like him or you're gonna hate him. He's kind of has that he's got an argumentative personality. I have an argumentative personality, so I understand it. I was in a crowded bar, so I can't get as many moments, but two moments that I really remember was a little back and forth between Cruz and DC over their stoppage of the Barcelos fight. Cruz thought it was a terrible stoppage, and DC kind of took the route that it was an okay stoppage. That was a little fun. But my favorite moment, probably of the entire night, and you have to check this out, when Andrade kept going for the takedowns and Rose was holding on to Kimura, Dominic Cruz says, she's got to stop lifting her up. She's letting her kind of dangle. She needs to turn the corner. And so that he kept stressing that when she gets on the hips. As soon as Andrade got the hips, Dominic Cruz says, she can't pick her up here. Not saying she couldn't have the ability, but saying, no, turn the corner. He said she can't pick her up here. And then 1 second later, Rose Namajunas was unconscious. So to me, that is about as good as when Hoist Gracie fought Dan Severn at UFC 4 and Jeff Blacknett. Hoist Gracie had Dan Severn in a triangle choke, and Jeff Blacknett says, "He got nothing going on, nothing here." And then Dan Severn tapped out 1 second later. So, it's been, what is this, UFC 237? So it's been 234
numbered UFCs,
numbered UFCs since we've had that moment, all the way back to, I believe that would have been about 94, 95 at that time. So, great job, Dominic Cruz.
Making some history, yeah. I really think these guys are coming into their own from this perspective. I struggled coming up with my not for nothings and some of that stuff because I thought they were doing so well. I really think these guys are sharp, man. I think they're on it. All right, let's talk about the performances of the night. Fight of the night went to Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade, $50,000 to each. Performance of the night went to Jessica Andrade, $50,000 to her. And the other performance of the night went to Warley Alves for his defeat of Sergio Moraes. Let's do it before we let you go, and then we'll do a finish strong. I just want to throw some stuff at you real quick just to get your really quick thoughts, and then we'll move on to finish strong. They announced Cerrone versus Ferguson. You like that fight?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week. You mix and match them however you want. I still like the idea of Cerrone versus Conor. I think he kind of deserves it. But I'm glad Tony Ferguson's back. We talked about this. Conor, Ferguson, Cerrone, Gaethje, however you want to mix them up, I'm cool with all of them. It's so fun. So yeah, I'm cool with it.
Nate Diaz, Anthony Pettis. What do you think about that fight?
Same thing. I'm a little untrustworthy whether Nate gets that fight, if he actually shows up. But what I've liked, I think Cerrone has earned a big name. I wouldn't have mind, even though we've already seen it before. I wouldn't have mind if Cerrone got that fight with Nate Diaz. I think he kind of deserves it. But it's always good to have a star. They're lacking stars. Nate Diaz is a star. Good to see him back. And that's a loaded – that card is already getting loaded. I believe that's DC Stipe, Yoel Romero, Paulo Costa, and now Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis. Those three fights already announced. That's a pretty good start to that pay-per-view.
That's a hell of a card. All right, we typically only do this for UFC, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to just talk to you about Bellator and PFL. Bellator, the same night, Patricio Pitbull knocks out Michael Chandler. Douglas Lima knocks out Michael Page. AJ McKee picked up a win. Jake Hager defeated the Juggernaut. Tombstone Jones. Anything about any of these fights? What kind of jumped out? I mean, a crazy night, right? When you got Chandler and Page getting knocked out.
One thing I think I'm glad that Pitbull. I wasn't rooting against Michael Chandler. I actually picked Chandler away, but I'm glad to see Pitbull have this moment where now he's a double champion. I hope that gets him a little more recognition. Patricio Pitbull has been drastically underrated in the all-time rankings, and that goes to just how we rank fighters. We always rank UFC fighters higher. Pitbull is a homegrown Bellator guy. I'm glad that he had this moment, got his revenge from his brother, a fight that he's been hoping for a long time. So we need to start putting Pitbull higher in the rankings. He's good.
Yeah, let's talk about some of his accomplishments real quick, just to give him his props. And credit to Mike Bond, who I'm using his post-fight facts from Bellator. So it says Pitbull became the second simultaneous two-division champ in Bellator history, joining Ryan Bader. Pitbull became the third fighter in Bellator history to win titles in two weight classes. Bader and Joe Warren also accomplished this feat. His 7 victories in Bellator championship fights are most in company history. His 17 victories in Bellator competition are most in company history. So if nothing else, let's just talk about Bellator. He's got to be, if not not the best fighter in Bellator history, one of the top 3, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this is where I think Bellator really dropped the ball. I think it was a heated rivalry between two guys who've been wanting to fight each other for a while. To me, they're the two most accomplished fighters in Bellator history, Michael Chandler and Pitbull. Could have been who's the greatest Bellator fighter of all time. But having it go against head-to-head with the UFC, like against a UFC pay-per-view, you have Friday nights. They're trying to do this Monday Night Raw WCW thing where they having this battle. You're losing those battles, so don't do it. Be on Friday. We went PFL, Bellator, UFC. Everyone would have been happy.
That would have been great. Yeah.
Yeah, come on, Bellator. But yeah, it's a shame because this was a really great card that got overshadowed. It's come on, Bellator, get your shit together. Stop doing that.
Let's talk Lima Page real quick. What's more impressive, the fact that Lima knocked out Michael Page, or the fact that he looked after he did it like he was not surprised by it? I mean, I've never seen a guy more nonchalantly. A guy that everybody thought was a juggernaut. Like everybody had no idea what Page was going to lose next, right? And then he knocked him out. And just
he's a gangster. I mean, how can you not like Douglas Lima? He is a gangster. But that one thing I want to say, this might have killed the hype train, but this did not kill the fighter. Michael Page is still a really good fighter, and I'm shocked at how many people, because he got knocked out, he slipped and on his way up, he got caught. I'm surprised at how many people just write guys off after one performance. I mean, how many times have we got to see guys have these wonderful careers after having early losses and people giving up on them? Why do people do that? It makes no sense. To me, Michael Page is still a really good fighter, and I think he could – he's got some holes he's got to share up, but people are just thinking he's all hype and all this. To me, he lost to a really good fighter. Michael Chandler just got knocked out. Was he not a good fighter?
Yeah. And all your best fighters in history, Anderson Silva came to the UFC.
Rose Namajunas got knocked out. Is she not a great fighter? I mean, yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up here with Jake Hager and TJ Jones. I'll give you a softball here. Who do you think wins between Jake Hager and Greg Hardy?
I don't think it's I'm going to go with the wrestler, so I would go Hager. But that athleticism of Greg Hardy, I mean, I said it last week when we talked about it. I'm shocked at how low people are on Greg Hardy. And I think he's a lot younger than Jake Hager too. So
yeah, Hager's almost 40, I think.
Yeah, I still got to take the wrestler in Jake Hager, but
37.
Yeah, I'll take Hager, but I'm actually interested in that fight. I'd like to see that happen.
It is interesting because
good call, man.
I do think that I don't think Hardy has anything for Hager's wrestling, but damn, Hager's going to have to go through a storm to get to that wrestling.
That's right.
Greg Hardy knows damn well he ain't got nothing for that wrestling, so he is going to be he would be guns blazing.
What did you think about Hager? He held on to that submission well after the referee told him stop.
Well, and he said after the fight that Jones did get under his skin. So
well, then go full heel. Don't be like either 100% apologize and be like I was wrong. I understand it's promotional sense. I should learn that. I'm supposed to be a professional, or go the other way. Like, you got to talk shit, I'm going to do this. It's like, don't play the fence.
Well, here's the other thing that's concerning about that is that if a guy like Tombstone Jones, a 1 and 2 regional fighter, gets under your skin after you were in the WWE, for Christ's sakes, how thin is your skin?
Yeah, for real.
Like, I mean, you've got guys say everything about you in WWE. Yeah, it's all scripted, but they're still taking a shit on you. If this guy can get that easily under your skin, what happens when you start mess around with the big boys?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if anybody should be used to or understands the marketing of a fight, it should be someone like him. Yeah, 100. That was dead on. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. He should definitely understand that. But
All right, let's move on to PFL. We'll touch that real quick. You did a lot of work on PFL, so I want to talk to you about it. Kayla Harrison gets a W in the main event. Goes the distance with Larissa Pacheco. Cries afterwards. Very disappointed with her performance. Were you disappointed with her performance?
No, Larissa Pacheco is one of the. I wouldn't put her as a favorites, but she's one of the most experienced ones. Kayla Harrison, she's going to win that. From everything I've seen, she's going to win. Obviously, Sarah Kaufman is going to be her biggest test. But Sarah Kaufman is a weak wrestler, and Kayla Harrison's going to – I thought it was a great performance. I don't get it. People jump – hey, listen, jump off the bandwagon. I'll be driving. Kayla Harrison's going to win the season.
Magomed Karamov picked up a win over John Howard. Ray Cooper picked up a win over Zane Kamaka. Both finishes. Sarah Kaufman, like you mentioned, picked up a win. That's Sad Wasai body kicked to Mashad. Mashad's a tough kid, man. When I was watching that fight, I was out with some buddies, and I saw him go down to it. I was like, holy shit.
Sai has an 80-inch reach. I mean, you can't ignore that. And he's a former world champion kickboxer. He's got a major, major hole in his wrestling. But being that he's so tall, you have to shoot him on his legs, because if you get in the clinch, it's actually hard to lift him off his legs because his legs are so tall. So you have to shoot it on him. Sai's a sleeper. I mean, he is a sleeper. You have to get past that crazy reach. I mean, he was already big for middleweight. Now he's going down to welterweight. He's huge.
All right, I'll ask you the unfair question. Other than Kayla Harrison, anybody on this card that can win it all?
I mean, for the women's weight class?
No, for the whole thing. Anybody on this? Everybody that would fought on Thursday night that could get the $1 million.
Well, obviously, because it's the welterweight. So one of the men who fought will win $1 million. Magomed Karamov, to me, is the favorite. He really doesn't have a hole. He won it last year. I definitely think he's a favorite. Ray Cooper, obviously, he's a very underrated wrestler. He's a 4-time state champion wrestler. He bangs really hard. To me, he's like Karamov's the favorite. Cooper's next. A couple other guys that Hennison Ferreira is very strong, very good kicks, very good power. He fights at a crazy high pace. He's a guy that to me is a little dark horse. And Sai, he's very big. He's a guy just because of his size advantage alone. He's going to be tough. So those are the four I'm kind of looking at. I was pretty high in Kira Magomedov, who ended up losing to Glauco Franco. That's the only fight I got wrong on the card. So props to me, 9 out of 10. I'll take it. He's a really strong offense wrestler. He's a little weak defensive wrestler. If he can get his offense wrestling and fight his game plan, he is a sleeper. Don't count him out yet since he lost. I know a lot of people are huge on Chris Curtis. I'm not as high as other people, but I definitely think this was a very strong performance with him. So maybe I may have ranked him a little too low. I still believe he will struggle with strong wrestlers, and there's a lot of good wrestlers. Magomedov, who I mentioned, Magomed Karamov. Bojan Veliko is a good wrestler. Hennison Ferreira is a good wrestler. Glauco Franco is a good wrestler. Mishad is a good wrestler. He was a Division I. I mean, there's 6 guys just off the top of my head that are strong wrestlers that I think can give Chris Curtis. But his boxing his boxing looked better than I ever saw, and I've seen almost every one of his fights. So, yeah, man, I love the PFL, man. I'm all in. Yeah.
Let me ask you 2 quick questions, and then we'll get to finish strong and chat here. 2 quick questions about PFL. One, do you like the live stats? Like that they're
it was too much.
Updates as they go.
There was too much stuff going on.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind it
after the round.
Or I wouldn't mind like flashing them up, like total strikes. Flash it up at the 1 minute mark. Maybe throw up power strikes, throw up leg. Do what you use. Just flashing up every once in a while. But going strong. There was one fight. One guy was kept landing, and because they're doing it live, and it must have been a glitch. He didn't update. It was like it's 3 minutes in. The guy has a stat, and there wasn't update. It was just too much. They're trying to do too much.
And I think it gives you an opportunity to drive people towards your social or drive people towards your website. I mean, have it up there. Sure. If you have the technology anyway, put it there.
Yeah. And another thing about the PFL, I just want to give them credit. This is an organization a year ago after their first event, everyone said, oh, my God, are they even going to be able to pay the fighters the $1 million? A year later, they're on ESPN. They were live on ESPN too. Good, man. And root for that stuff. Root for these organizations to be successful.
Here's the other thing. Well, you opened up another thing in my brain, but I'll hit you with the last thing here in a second. But let me tell you something. If you're a casual and you're watching that fight on Thursday, and 1 minute you're watching Dominic Cruz on Unlocking Victory, and the next minute you're watching PFL, and then you're watching an interview with a UFC fighter, you don't know from nothing, right? You don't know that there's – I think the cross-pollination they're doing with – I mean, listen, I said this on Early Stoppage, I predicted within 2 years PFL is going to be a feeder league for the UFC, and if you win the PFL tournament, you're going to get $1 million in a UFC contract. I think ESPN is going to push them in that direction. But there's a lot of crossover between PFL and ESPN. I mean, between PFL and UFC on ESPN. I liked it. The last thing I'll ask you real quick. Well, go ahead.
Harrison, real quick. We were talking. Me and my friend have a very long discussion on who could be a star in MMA. Talking about the future. I went with Adesanya. I think he's the guy in the UFC. But generally in MMA, Kayla Harrison has so much star quality. I interviewed her last week. She draws you in with her personality. She gets compared to Ronda Rousey. She is the opposite of Ronda Rousey in her personality. And I'm not dogging Ronda Rousey, but just she's so welcoming. I love Kayla Harrison. She could really be the next future star of MMA. That's how high I am on her personality. She's that good.
Yeah, and the other part about it is when people actually dig through the research and really get to know Kayla Harrison, they realize she won gold medals and Ronda won bronze. So that's a way to kind of promote her as well. Yeah, she won two gold medals and Ronda got a bronze. All right, the last question about PFL I want to ask you is, do you think that the standings, I think that's kind of – I don't think it's as much – I think it's kind of about bragging rights because a lot of guys made the playoffs. Like if there's 10 fighters, 8 of them make the playoffs. So the standings are important, but I think the big draw to that was that fighters like to be the guy. They're going for a finish because they like being on top of the standings. I don't know if it's necessarily giving them an advantage forward.
Yeah. There's actually two ways of thinking about it. I know some fighters want to get that finish. Other ones will play it. I'm sorry, my TV just went on real quick. I'm having – hold on a second. Can you hear that?
No, it's off.
Oh, okay. You can't hear. Okay, I'm sorry. Other people will say, they'll play it safe. They'll just sneak away to make sure they get the points, get a win. Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's fun. It's the best way. What I hate about the PFL, as much as I'm not scared to speak what I hate about something. I love the season. I love the playoffs. I hate that the quarterfinals and semifinals in the same night. To me, I think that's a big mistake. I hate that. So please, next season, please change it.
All right, let's get out of here and finish strong. I'm gonna keep it short so we can get up out of here. Bonuses for prelim fighters. That's it. I think they should have bonuses for main card fighters, bonuses for prelim fighters. That way, these kids and if no one on the prelims earns the bonus, don't give it. But I think they should split them because you're asking these prelim fighters to do their performance will have to be so much more impressive than like the idea of like slam knocking out Rose Namajunas. You have to go so much further. And I know Warley Alves got a victory. I just think it just means a lot more to the prelim fighters. So allocate the right amount of funds so that you can, if it means that it's less money but more bonuses, so be it. Give everybody $25,000 and give 6 people instead of 3. I'm fine with that. All right, you're up.
Yeah, I might finish strong. I'm gonna take a gamble on doing this, but I wish we would stop treating the Brazilian crowd the way we treat them. Can we stop let's stop promoting them being crazy and being hostile and making it seem like they're terrible people not making it seem like it's okay for them to act terribly. Like that's part of their nature. It's part of their culture to do that. Imagine if a Canadian was fighting, George St. Pierre was fighting in Montreal and the crowd started screaming to Jake Shields, "You're gonna die." Can we stop pretending? These guys are human beings. Like, can we not treat them that way? Can we not be if you don't kiss the Brazilian crowd's ass, they're going to throw stuff at you and treat you terribly. The way they treated Jared Cannonier, I thought was absolutely terrible. If you want to boo, him because he won, sure. I mean, obviously you're going to have your hometown favorite. You know, you should have been booing. You should have been booing Anderson Silva for continuing to fight and putting a guy like Jared Cannonier in a terrible situation. Rose Namajunas does not get enough credit that she went. As a champion, she went into hostile territory and willing to take fights. If the crowd keeps treating this way, the stars aren't going to come. Because if you're Robert Whittaker or you're Kamaru Usman or something like that and you're a champion, why would you want to fight in Brazil? Why would you want to do it? And I think a big reason that comes out is the way the UFC and the commentators and all talk about the crowd and that they almost push these people to do it. We got to stop doing that. I think it's terrible the way these people treat it. And you know who I don't – I think – I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a rant. I think the Brazilian star fighters need to call out the fans. when Jared Cannonier, who's treated Anderson Silva with nothing but respect all week, did not trash talk highly of him. Even when he was starting to talk highly, Anderson, when he was booed so bad he couldn't talk, Anderson Silva should have walked over and said, hey, this guy treated me with respect. Now you guys treat him with respect. Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, the Nogueira brothers, Amanda Nunes, whoever, you know the biggest stars in Brazil, they need to speak out on the way that the crowd is treating people.
There you go. I agree. All right, guys, there you have it. Another one in the books. UFC 237, another Sunday morning Cornerman in the books. Keith, tell them what you're working on, where you can be read, where you can be followed.
Yeah, you can follow me, Keith Shillan. My last name is spelled Shillan MMA, at Keith Shillan MMA. You can follow me, on Twitter. You can read all my writings on Cageside Press, on Fansided, and on Sherdog. My big write-up coming up this week. The next 2 weeks will be my writings. I'll be previewing, ranking all the fighters in the PFL. This week it'll be the featherweights and the lightweights, which is for the next event. So check that out. Get a lot of information in that. And that would be on Sherdog. So check it out, please.
All right, guys, there you have it. Keep it locked to the Cageside Press Podcast Network. 2 things we have coming this week. For sure, in addition to probably a Keyboard Warriors from Eddie Law and the crew and a WMMA Today podcast from Drake Riggs and Steve King, I will be doing another early stoppage with Mike Strauss. That'll be a weekly thing we're going to do. I am trying to get a hold of – let me not say it that way. I'm the one that's causing the problem here. Patrick Auger, we're going to do a performance bonus finance podcast. That's on me, not him, so I will get that done as well. So keep it locked to Cageside Press. You can follow us at Cageside Pods. Follow me at SM Cornerman. Obviously follow at Cageside Press. Like us on YouTube. All the cool shit that YouTube people say. Ring the bell and all that stuff. Do all that. Make sure you tell your friends. Make sure you tell your mom. Tell your mom's friends. Tell your friends' moms. Tell everybody about the Sunday morning corner. Peace.